Hello BookTube and welcome to Weekly Reads. I've had quite the roller coaster reading week. I started off the week with The City of Lost Fortunes by Bryan. This was a reread. City of Lost Fortunes is a novel that I have loved and continue to love. It is an urban contemporary fantasy, or contemporary urban fantasy. It is set in 2011 New Orleans, and it's the story of Jude Dubuisson, a demigod sorcerer who has isolated himself from the magical community of New Orleans post-Katrina as his power to find missing or hidden items and people goes haywire and out of his control. His isolation lasts for 6 years until he is approached by an old colleague with a message that is calling in a debt. And Jude goes to a shotgun house. I think that's what it's called. And an abandoned shotgun house where the luck god of New Orleans, Dodge Renaud, is playing a game of fortunes with a number of similar trickster gods, Thoth, Papa Legba, a vampire named Scarpelli, and an angel named Hay. And Jude makes up the last of the company. And when it is finally Jude's turn to pony up a hand that he cannot fold, the cards he draws are blank. This game of fortunes, it's poker with the tarot, and it's basically a sort of a fortune or a narrative that the cards produce that determines the winning hand. Jude flees the game and learns the following day that Dodge has been murdered, and Jude is one of the suspects. In order to clear his name and to find out who did murder Dodge, Jude re-enters the New Orleans magical community in a race to find a murderer and to eventually frustrate the schemes of a number of very powerful figures in the New Orleans magical community that will eventually see the fate of New Orleans decided. As I mentioned earlier, I love this book. This is my third reading of it, and my love for this book has only increased. I love the world building. New Orleans. I mean, I've never been to New Orleans, so I can't say for sure how much Camp gets right or wrong. But from reading this book, I feel like I get a sense of New Orleans. That New Orleans leaps off the page. I love the characters. Jude, his progression, his character, his humor. This novel itself is quite a riot a lot of the time. The other characters, Regal, Papa Legba, they're all amazing. Renee, they're all amazing. The plots, or the narrative and the plot, I adore. So I really love this book. Now, I do have some quibbles. I wouldn't be me if I didn't have quibbles about pretty much everything. So, Jude starts the novel off as a bit of a reluctant hero before he gets back into the groove and becomes more and more enthusiastic about getting involved and returning back to the New Orleans magical community. And I'm not entirely sure. I mean, the period where Jude is a reluctant hero is a bit unsteady, unsettled. Mind you, I do not like reluctant heroes. I much prefer enthusiastic heroes because at some point the hero has to become enthusiastic. Um, Otherwise, while the reader becomes enthusiastic, the dissonance with the protagonist or narrator kind of complaining and not wanting to be there, it will get grating um, after a while. But I do think it kind of Jude's reluctance and how quickly it evaporates. On one hand, it's a bit of, well, why have the reluctance, and another. So anyway, um, although I think it might have something to do with sort of settling in the reader, of drawing the reader in, of guiding them into the world, which I can kind of understand, but at the same time, do fantasy fans really need that guide, that sort of that easing into the world? Since, I mean, worlds in which wizards throw fireballs at each other, we should not be that unfamiliar with. I mean, it's a genre we love pretty much for those reasons. So our acceptance, our latching on to the world, does it need a guide or an ease it? But anyway, another issue I noticed this reread is that there's one character who late in the book comes into some trouble, and he is revealed to be a figure of some importance to folklore. And the problem, I think, with this revelation is that it kind of comes out of nowhere, and it goes nowhere. It's basically a setup for the final conflict, or one of the final conflicts, but that kind of final conflict could have been settled with the character as he initially appears to be. So I noticed that, but in a way, while I do love the myriad schemes and plots that Jude's competitors have throughout the novel, some of them don't quite go anywhere, or they're not quite so fleshed out at times. And it is kind of busy, but I think that's one of the novel's charms. But anyway, so I loved every moment I spent with this book, and it makes me want to go ahead and read the sequel, Gather the Fortunes, which I will probably get to sometime in October or December, hopefully. And I did actually look and see if Bryan Kemp has a third novel coming out, and he does. Although it's not going to be related to his first two books. So it's going to be, I think, a completely new work, or kind of a new series, or standalone, I don't know. But he just recently finished the first draft, or the draft, so we'll see what Bryan Kemp's next work is. But I'm looking forward to it regardless. So I finished City of Lost Fortunes midday on Sunday. So I started one of the books I hadn't read that I've been meaning to get to for about a year since I've had it in my collection. And that was The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai. I originally picked this up for my America 20 project. The Great Believers is a split narrative. Part of the novel is set initially in 1985, but progresses, I think, to sometime in the early mid 90s, and it is about a dwindling friend circle amongst a number of gay men and their straight friends in Chicago. The second narrative takes place in 2015, and features one of the straight allies, Fiona, from the 85 to early 90s section in Paris looking for her estranged daughter. So I started the novel on Sunday, and the writing's okay. The characters are okay. The plot, I'm trying to figure what it is. I mean, obviously the 2015 one has a solid plot. I mean, a mother looking for her estranged daughter. The 80s, 90s plot, like, what is this and how does this connect to the 2015? I don't know. And so by the time I finished about a little more than 10% of the novel on Sunday, I'm like, I don't know. I do not know what I think of this novel. So I picked it back up on Monday, and that feeling of just, I'm not feeling this novel. It's not hooking me. I'm not interested in it. So I got to about a quarter of the way through, and I just decided to bail. So this is a bail, largely because it just did not hook me. It did not interest me at all. And so I kind of struggled to figure out what I was going to read in the rest of the work week, because on Monday, the four children of the apocalypse came over, my two nieces and two nephews, because their parents, my brother and sister-in-law, are looking for a house. So me and my mom watched them for about 2 hours, and then they were going to come over on Tuesday again, because again they're looking for a house. So I'm like, okay, I need something I could read rather quickly, so I settled in on some manga. So I read the first 2 volumes of Tsubasa, Reservoir Chronicle by Clamp. This is volume 1, and this is volume 2. Clamp are a group of 4 mangaka who divvy up the art and writing responsibilities. Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle is a portal fantasy crossover. Many of the major characters in Tsubasa are variations on earlier characters. The main character, so the plot is basically Lee Sioran is a young archaeologist in the kingdom of Cloud. One day he and his team discovers mysterious ruins that when Princess Sakura, both characters from Clamp's previous work, Cardcaptor Sakura, comes, the chamber activates her powers, and once her powers manifest, her heart and her memories are shattered and spread across multiple worlds. To save Princess Sakura, the High Priest Yukito sends Sioran and Sakura to Earth, and to the space-time witch Yoko, who, along with her aide Watanuki, are the protagonists of X-Holic, or Triple X-Holic, which is a manga I've wanted to read for ages. Anyway, so Sioran appears before the space-time witch and asks for her help. At the same time, 2 other characters appear. Fady Flowright, who is a powerful sorcerer, and Kurogane, who is a powerful samurai from a version of Japan. Both men are roped into helping Seorin, and each must sacrifice something in order to pay the toll to get a creature that can travel dimensions. Fai gives up his magic, Kurogane gives up his sword, and Seorin gives up his relationship with Sakura as it has been. So after they meet with the Yoko, she sends them on their way, and they go to the Hanshin Republic to find Sakura's first feather. The Hanshin Republic is a variation on Japan, in which the people of this world have sort of like spirit animals. Think the daemons from the Northern Lights trilogy by Philip Pullman. A lot of the youth in this setting use their kudan to basically fight for territory, for show, because they're brats. And so Seorin, Fai, and Kurogane, and Makona, the being that can travel dimensions, go in search of Sakura's feather. And as I was rereading these two volumes, I fell in love with Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle all over again. The story, the characters, the writing, the art, I was like taken back to when I first read them, and I want to collect the entire series. It is phenomenal. And I want to show you some artwork. Like this here. I completely want to pick up the rest of the series, and probably sometime next year just binge the entire series for like a month or something. So but I loved it. So I read Tsubasa 1 and 2 on Tuesday, and then I realized I'm kind of running out of manga to read, because I have I think 4 or 5 volumes left that I can read that haven't been hauled yet, because I don't like to read things before I've officially hauled them. I'm weird like that. So I decided, okay, for Wednesday and Thursday, since I'm going to have a bit of an extended reading period because Big Brother comes on Wednesdays and Thursdays, so I can read till 7. I'm going to pick one of the 2 poetry anthologies I had picked up last month. So I went with Poems by Elizabeth Bishop. This is a collection of her entire oeuvre, up to and including unpublished work that she trunked, that she very clearly had no intention of ever seeing publication. There are a few poems that I really enjoyed. Armadillo, The Burglar Babylon, Riverman, Manuel Gino. But for the most part, the poems were okay. They didn't really I didn't really feel them all that much. So, yeah. I mean, I'm glad I read them, but I don't think Elizabeth Bishop is anywhere near one of my favorite poets. Sad to say. So I read poems Wednesday and Thursday, and then today I went back to reading some manga. So I started off with Magi Volume 2 by Shinobu Ohtaka. I previously read Magi Volume 1 and really enjoyed it. And this volume continues on with the storyline that ended the first volume. Aladdin, a young wizard, and Alibaba, a young ne'er-do-well, I guess you could say, are in a dungeon seeking the treasure so that Alibaba can achieve his dreams of financial success, and Aladdin just because he wants friends. They are pursued by the lord of the city in which this dungeon is in, and he wants the treasure for himself and for Aladdin to make him a king vessel, which is something that will be covered later on. No, also what a Magi is. And reading this volume, I'm like, I loved it. Again, I just gobbled it up and just loved every moment I spent with this book. The artwork is phenomenal. Get a really good picture. I mean, this is from inside the dungeon. There's also a really good one where Aladdin's power just sort of manifests for the first time. Like right here. I loved every moment of reading this volume. I'm so totally going to pick up the rest of Magi. And I also read Naruto Volume 1 by Masashi Kishimoto. Naruto is one of the most popular manga of the last 20 years. It is the story of Uzumaki Naruto, who is initially an apprentice or student ninja who is ostracized by his village of Konoha and wishes to be acknowledged by the community by becoming Hokage. Much like with the Seven Deadly Sins from last year, when I first read this volume, the first volume, I didn't quite get on with it. I kind of really got into Naruto, the manga, by reading the post-time skip volumes. But rereading Naruto today, or Volume 1 today, I loved every moment with this volume. I just loved it. It is phenomenal. The characters, the art, the movement, just amazing. I wanted to show you a scene like here. I loved every moment with this, and I want to collect the whole Naruto, so just highly recommend it. So that pretty much wraps up my reading week. So the City of Lost Fortunes and the manga were the highest of highs, particularly today, where Naruto Volume 1 just completely blew me away, and I am so wonderfully thrilled about that. And then The Great Believers and Poems by Elizabeth Bishop were disappointments. It makes me question some of my some of the changes I've been thinking of making to my library, which I might talk about in weekly reads or another video, because this one's going a bit long and I really need to talk about what I'm going to be reading this coming week, starting tomorrow. So this weekend begins the History Challenge, of which I'm going to be participating in. But I'm going to start tomorrow so I can get a head start on one of the books I'm reading, which is going to be rather large. So starting tomorrow, I'm going to be reading The World Turned Upside Down by Yang Jisheng. This is a history of the Cultural Revolution, and I've read Yang Jisheng's previous book, Tombstone, and loved it. And I'm expecting The World Turned Upside Down to take a similar documentary approach to the history that Yang Jisheng did with Tombstone, and I'm still looking forward to this book. Just thrilled to read it. If I finish The World Turned Upside Down this coming week, there's a probability I might not, but I could. If I do finish this coming week, or during the course of the week, I will start on Republics of the New World by Hilda Sabato. This is a history of Latin America in the immediate years following their independence from Spain. And I'm quite looking forward to this book, too. So that's my reading plans. So next week I'm probably going to do some more tags. Maybe some tag necromancy. Because I think there's one or two tags that I saw Steve Donahue do years ago that I've always wanted to do, but I need to go and track them down. Because I think some of them I have saved for in my watch later list, and some I don't. Which I think I also have a lot of other tags that I need to go look up. Anyway, and then I might actually do some like the poetry readings on Thursdays, because I kind of want to get involved in that too. Although I think after Poems by Elizabeth Bishop, I don't think I'm going to be reading any more poetry collections until next April. So, as of now, Philip Larkin will just have to wait for me to read him. But anyway, so that's all I have for today. Thank you, BookTube. Hope you have a great evening and weekend. And I will see you next Monday, hopefully. If not, certainly on Tuesday with the continuation of Jim's alphabet tags and probably Mark's Interrail, Eurorail tags. I'm loving both of them. Which I think I'll do the Interrail on Monday and then Jim's on the in tag on Tuesday. But a new BookTube. So until next week, thank you and stay safe.